Yeah. Hello, boys and girls. I want to welcome you to the latest Trainers Talk. I have a very, very special guest here with me. I have Mr. Dick Schulze. Mr. Schulze is well known for his work in business as the founder and chairman emeritus of Best Buy. He leads in his philanthropic endeavors through his family foundation that bears his name, and his education leadership at the Schulze School of Entrepreneurship at the University of St. Thomas is well known. And I'm very excited to sit down with you because I've been able to work with your family, especially Susan, Dwayne, and Chelsea and Taylor for some years, and I want to really thank you for joining me.
You're most welcome. It's good to be here and with you.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to jump right into it. One of the things when I was thinking about doing this and asking Susan to see if you were available was, in researching and knowing you over the years, your communication skill is really how you deliver a message is very concise, is very thoughtful. And where did that come from? How did you develop that?
That's really a great question, and thanks actually for pointing it out. It's no small act on my part. It's intentional to put myself in the place of the person receiving the message.
Yeah.
And so I've simply have trained myself to speak in a way in which I can achieve clarity, focus, and understand that if a certain person is not experienced in the subject we're talking about, and or not familiar, with what we're attempting to achieve, that I need to be clear. I need to express things in a way in which it's understandable, simple. Usually try to repeat it twice.
Yeah.
So things don't get lost in the translation.
Yeah.
So I just put myself, if you will, in the person of the receiver.
Yeah.
And I speak in a way in which hopefully things are easy, natural, understandable, and usually careful enough to do it again.
Yes.
At least once or twice during the conversation, so that I know or feel strongly that things land.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
And did that kind of skill, did that develop through your business career? Did you start to develop that? How was that when you were younger? Where do you feel like, or did it just kind of grow as you grew?
Donavan, it was really more a case of issues I had in hearing other people talk to me on subjects I wasn't familiar with.
Okay, yeah.
So they would not take the time to go back over something that they felt was important that I understood at the point in which we were having a conversation. Now, whether that was true in a negotiation, whether that was true just in an expression of how people felt about what was either upcoming or how they felt about doing something differently.
Yes.
And so you can ramble on if you want, but if you lost the person along the way because what you had to say, wasn't familiar, wasn't understood, then things get lost in the subsequent or ensuing conversation. So it's really a trait, that I learned just by virtue of the fact that I oftentimes had difficulty following people who were talking to me about things that weren't something that I was familiar with.
Exactly.
So that's why I do it the way I do it.
Oh, love it. Being a business owner and a father of 4 beautiful children and a father figure to many more, how do you deal with stress?
Candidly, for me, probably the best way to have dealt with it is not to get too emotionally involved.
Yes.
With what's happened, what's happening, or how somebody feels about something in particular. I pride myself on my ability to divorce emotion from decision making.
Yeah.
I try to understand things on the basis of how it's being delivered, how it's being thought about, how it's required, and I try to take out of the equation, well, it's my daughter, or it's my grandson, or it's a close, it's a person close to me, and it's the only way I can achieve some degree of separation, and I can speak as a result a little bit more emphatically, a little more accurately, a little more distinctively. When emotion plays in there, you have to move around things or subjects. You can't approach them head on. So I try real hard to be somewhat removed in the communication, only to the degree that I don't let feelings interrupt the thoughts.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. I was doing some of the research and growing up and going to Best Buy, and when I think of Best Buy, I think of value. I think of selection. But one thing I've heard you say is something about the word or the term lockstep. And what does that term mean to you?
Well, lockstep obviously means you need to be aligned with somebody.
Yeah.
So when we changed our business model to customer in control, the whole idea for me was the customer deserves to engage somebody who is knowledgeable about something they care to learn about, care to know about, and need to have in order to make a good decision. So from my vantage point, our training for all the people that wait on our customers was really put yourself in the mind or the mode and the frame of the customer with whom you're dealing, and make sure that what you say, how you respond, what you demonstrate, are all in support of what that customer needs to know to make a buying decision, because we want to leave that buying decision to them.
Yeah.
And so you really need to prepare, then to arm, and then to educate, not try to sell.
Yeah.
And so the customer knows when he's being sold something, as opposed to when he's just being informed about what it is he needs to know to make a good decision. And there's a degree of comfort, and then confidence, and then trust that follows when you behave or you interact that way.
Yeah.
So it's all about the customer being in control. It's all about what I call customer-centric business model.
Yeah. Customer
first, customer foremost, customer always. That's how we approach everything we do with the people that we serve.
Yeah. That it's interesting. Even just you talking about that is showing how your communication strength plays into the actual business model and how you communicate to customers, because it definitely trickled down within. And that's the one thing I noticed when I was, over the years is seeing that connection.
Thank you.
What, kind of thinking about, Susan and Dwayne, and I've met several of your children and family over the years, but what has your daughter Susan and your grandchildren Chelsea and Taylor taught you about business and life in general?
With Susan, obviously it's been gratifying. She's been with me so long, at Best Buy over 30 years, and she hasn't been given a lot of slack, and I mean that in a way that says I trust that she learns the hard way.
Yes.
So I don't soften bumps or humps or bruises, and so she's learned by doing, and by failing, and by growing, and by succeeding. In all of her endeavors. She's determined, to do things well. She's determined to do things right. And she takes the time to make sure that that's the case. In Chelsea's case, Chelsea is very ambitious. Chelsea is quick. Chelsea asks a lot of great questions. In fact, her questions to me started when she was in her 3s and 4s, sitting on my lap while I'm reading her a book. And she would stop me after a sentence or two and ask me why that was. So that's a mark of curiosity, and curiosity is a mark of intelligence. And from my vantage point, I really feel that Chelsea, there's no stopping where Chelsea can go. She just has to have the courage to try it, and not be afraid to fail. Taylor is a bit more analytical, and one of the things about Taylor that's interesting is, when you're when you're somewhat more of an analyst, he overthinks and outthinks almost everything that comes to him, and so at some point you just have to say, Taylor, there's such a thing as analysis paralysis. You can be doing this for so long you'll never get to a conclusion, or you'll never make a decision.
Yeah.
And so the kids are all different, and they're all terrific, and they all work hard. They're all clean-cut, upstanding, and hardworking people. So I just admire the whole family. Dwayne, no exception. Smart, capable, obviously also intelligent, loves what he does. Tries to, if you will, do the right thing, for how they manage and grow their business. So they're a family that I'm very proud of, and being a father, a grandfather, a stepfather, and a step-grandfather for 37 grandchildren now, I have the opportunity to assess, to engage, and to try to understand many of them, and they're all different, which is really cool. And I do practice what I preach when I talk to them about repeating myself to make sure that things don't get lost in the translation. So I'm blessed to have great kids around me. I'm blessed to have great friends and neighbors and people that I've come to know in my lifetime. And I've learned so much from differentiation, because everybody is different. And so with that, as a background, you just continue to learn more as long as you stay open to it.
Yeah. Totally. It is true to see that, I have 4 young ones of my own too, and they each distinctly have their own characteristics that they're very strong at, and they're really engaged in, and just from afar, I can see it is impressive to see a family like Susan, Dwayne, and Chelsea and Taylor that, still go hard and work hard, even though they at times really probably don't have to, from a means perspective, but they have the ambition and want to get better. It shows, being around you, I can see where they get a lot of that from, and Dwayne, well, from where he with his family and everything, where that comes from.
Well, they understand parenthood,
and
they understand their job is to mentor, to coach, to teach, to demonstrate. So if you don't walk the talk, it shows pretty quickly. So both of them do a really great job of showing the way. It isn't just conversation. They demonstrate and they lead, by example, and that's what a parent should do. I'm sure you're no different. You got 4 children that are looking up to their parents, their dad, their mom, and making sure that these children grow up with the right preparation to be successful in life is a parent's responsibility. And unfortunately, oftentimes things don't work out that way, and people don't think about it, but the child does suffer if what's demonstrated or what should be demonstrated doesn't occur.
You've done several changing the topics a little bit. It's become very obvious that charitable things that you've done with your foundation over the years, and with entrepreneurship in particular, and education in that. Where did the ambition to grow that come from?
Thanks. Thank you for that. That's an insightful and meaningful question. So I've got 53 years in the retail business, and having been a large part of growing Best Buy, from its humble beginnings, to what is now the largest, specialty electronics retailer in the world. So I'm very proud not only of what we've accomplished, but for the almost 100,000 employees we have, how important they've been to this whole success. But I didn't want to leave this life, this with one undertaking, as successful as it's been, and certainly as proud as I am of what it's done, what it's meant, and how much I've learned. But I said to myself, now that I've accumulated, if you will, the ability to distribute wealth, to those who are less fortunate. How would I go about doing that most effectively? And the takeaway I had was really not difficult once I began to really think about it. Being a Christian, candidly, I'm a solid believer in the Bible, its teachings, God, Christ, and the most meaningful aspect of what was the messaging that was delivered thousands of years ago. And I believe in the Ten Commandments as being the rules of how to lead your life. And I believe it's wise, insightful, proper, correct, and candidly, if everybody walked that talk, went that way, we'd be living in a much better world.
That's for sure.
Unfortunately, than in many ways has been, the alternative. And then his Sermon on the Mount, which was the 8 Beatitudes, essentially for me was a hallmark of, so now that you're prepared to lead a good life and do the right things, what should those things be? And of course, in his teachings through the 8 Beatitudes, it was really all about doing for others who cannot do for themselves. And share the wealth, share the knowledge, share the opportunity to become something more, than where things are today. So it's in those teachings that I essentially said, let's shape our foundation in a fashion that can help provide, if you will, the assistance, the help, the means for others, to survive, first and foremost, to grow, to become something more than where they are and what they're doing, and become useful, meaningful, and participating, citizens, in this world. So that's what we do. We focus on education in our foundation. We think it's extremely important that teaching people, particularly at the youngest ages, is a great place to start. So elementary education, we pour substantial funding, and beyond funding, direction, guidance, and tools to learn, so that academics and curriculum become fun, interesting, memorable, and useful, for young people. And so we measure it, of course. And we have teams of people, that participate actively in helping make that happen. Then Health and Human Services, again, for those who just are on the down and out, are having a tough time in life, things have not gone well, they've lost a job, they've lost a family member, they've lost confidence, they've lost, their own way in life. So how can we help that? Well, obviously, feeding people is important, sheltering people is important, providing guidance, training, education is important. So we invest in the areas where we can make somebody more productive, more beneficial, and more successful. And then there's groups of people that are put upon by disease or hardship. And so we invest in ways in which we can provide shelter, care, consideration, support, community. So I don't call it rocket science. I just call it common sense, doing the right thing, following God's works. And when somebody says, to me, well, just, how active a Christian are you? And how much, in Christ's teachings, do you follow or care about? I just usually answer with a simple term. I just simply say, I believe in walking the talk. I read it, I believe it, I understand it. He's blessed me with the ability to make a difference in people's lives, so that's what I'm going to do. So philanthropy has become something that I would hope, when I leave this life, becomes every bit as important, as having, created this enterprise, that has turned out to be so successful in so many people's lives.
It's interesting having that connection, and when, as you were talking about the parables, and I'm thinking of, and I say this a lot to my clients, and even to Susan, even though we've been training for,
years and years,
years and years, almost 15 years, is teaching her how to fish. The parable of that. So when she does travel, she knows what to do. She's become a trainer technically herself. She's got a certification, but I think the balance, as I was doing the research and also knowing you and the family of what you guys done in the health community, but the education portion and entrepreneurship, if within this country, being able to build businesses, can employ people, can give people purpose, and give people opportunities to really help their families
to achieve success in their own personal lives. That's what it's all about.
That's awesome. So I'm switching a little bit to the exercise side of things. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to be taking you through a workout or consultation session. Tell me a little bit about your workout routine and how did that start? How did you start your own routine?
So thanks for that question. I'm actually proud of the fact that I had the good fortune to engage with one of our board members back when I was 50. So that's dialing back about 30 years. And he pointed out a book to me he thought would be interesting for me. It was called Younger Next Year.
It's a great book.
And it's a bright yellow cover. And it's a story of a guy who was in his 70s, a lawyer actually. And because he was physically, not as strong and not as supple, not as capable as he was, during the course of his younger years and the sports that he engaged and the feelings that he had, candidly just started writing a book about what it was like to get back on track. And he went to a doctor. The doctor helped him, work through clearly what was going to be important in trying to, re-engage, muscles that he hadn't used in a long time, to stimulate, his vital signs, his blood flows, his blood pressures, the various measures that were important. So he started this journey, in a gym, 70, with a bunch of young, strapping athletes that were conditioning themselves for whatever the activities were they participated in. And I was so impressed with that book, I said, here I am 50, 20 years ahead of this guy. What if I were to start this while I still felt pretty good about it? And so I can honestly say that from the time I was 50 until today, I concentrate on conditioning myself mentally and physically every day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, usually from 6 in the morning till about 7:15. And I follow the process that was delivered in this book, which really starts with flexibility, starts with making sure that you loosen up your muscles, that you stretch properly. So I take 10 to 15 minutes, in the morning on the floor. I'm in a situation where I have adequate, music to, keep me moving. And so I turn the music on, I get on the floor, and I start stretching on my back, on my sides, on my stomach. I rely on some of my military training services, where I do sit-ups and push-ups. So it's all pretty much on the floor. So that's my, that's my process. Then, after I cool down just a little bit, drink a little bit of water, and I jump on my elliptical, and I spend between 30 and 40 minutes on the elliptical, so that I get my heart rate up. I try to get it over 100, and then when I'm completed, that routine, I lay back down on the floor to whatever the music is on, and 2 to 3 minutes later, my heart rate's back down to 52, 53, 54, 56. So I feel really good about the fact that, I'm working my heart muscles, every day. I feel the blood flow. I control my blood pressures. And then, after about 10 minutes on the floor, maybe not even 10 minutes, I do some weights. I typically do some chin dips and some pec deck exercises, just trying to work on my shoulders a little bit, my upper body a little bit, and so when I get done, I finish my 16 ounces of water, which I participate in during the process. I walk upstairs, I make my breakfast, sit down, I grab the paper, or now of course it's my iPad. I either sit outside, if it's a nice day, or I'm inside, and I spend something like 45 minutes having breakfast and catching up on news and information, and oftentimes some emails or text messages that are hanging over. I've been doing that for 30 years.
Yeah.
About the only time that I don't do it is when I travel, because it's more of a hassle to get myself into a situation, to find a place, to do what I do, find the equipment that I use, that I'm used to using. And so I just swear by it. I think it's made me feel younger.
Yeah.
It's made me feel more energetic and able to take on the day easily. I eat stress for breakfast. I'm conditioned, I think, to be clear thinking.
Yeah.
And in good shape. I graduated high school at 155. I'm now 164.
Yeah.
30 years later.
Yeah.
And while I might not quite have the muscular structure, that otherwise certainly I had when I was younger, I can honestly say in my 80 years, I have no pain, no pressure, anywhere, anytime, all the time, everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't feel any pain ever.
Yeah.
My muscle structures are well conditioned. I can do what I want to do, where I want to do it, how I want to do it. Nothing. I have no pain,
Yeah.
no arthritis, nothing that bogs down a lot of people my age.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think I just attribute it to conditioning myself and being religious about it.
Yeah.
And reliable with it. And so it's just part of how I live my life. It's how I start my day, and it's how I work my way through my day. So I have great respect for your career and what you do and how you help people, feel better, look better, by taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
And also putting some meaningful amount of regiment
Yeah.
to it, so that they're keeping up.
Yeah.
And if they slack, they pay a price.
Yeah.
I can feel it. I've told my daughter, I said, hey, I get back from a trip for a week or 10 days or when I'm gone, and I can feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah.
Like, as I didn't participate for a full week doing what I normally do. So I think that's what graciously said to me, well, I've asked Donavan if he would spend a little time with you, while you're here, on a couple things that you could learn to do that might help areas that you want to get better. I said, hey, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. So tomorrow morning, I guess we're on at 8 o'clock.
Yes, we're on 8
Yep,
o'clock, and
yep,
we'll we'll do some of your routine, and we'll work through a couple of things that you feel like are goals of yours that you want to continue to progress the way you're progressing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, coming back to the music, what is the music of choice for you when you're working out?
I love Fleetwood Mac. I love the Eagles.
Yeah.
I still listen to Roy Orbison. So I've taken music, that they've made, certainly famous and successful, and I merged it together in what amounts to about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Series of different music. Some of it is at a faster pace. Some of it is a little bit more like you're warming up, and I vary it, through the hour and a half.
Yeah.
So it's my own music, and Spotify even asked me at one point in time, if I wanted some different music, because I play it every day.
Yeah.
When I start my day.
Yep.
So, but just songs I picked out from some of their many albums that that have been successful, and I love the music, so that's what I stay with, and I don't vary it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The funny thing is that when you find something that works, I use my workout as a way, is a little bit meditative. I usually work out by myself, and I usually have my music, and I have my routine and the rhythm that I get into.
Sure.
And it kind of gives me that 45 minutes to an hour opportunity to kind of look in. Sometimes my best ideas come from those
sessions.
Those sessions when you have that quiet time to yourself. One of the things that you explained very well within talking about your foundation of what you want the world, how you want the world to remember you. How do you want your family to remember you?
Well, that's another really, really fine question. I'm hoping, I certainly am hoping that they will all respond to a person that leads by example, and provides advice and guidance when any of them needs a little push, a little shove, a listening ear.
Yeah.
So Grandpa was the kind of person, as successful as he was, that would always take time for me. I had a situation just 2 weeks ago where I got this, if you will, emergency phone call from a 12-year-old granddaughter who was having a meltdown, but because one of her parents was not in town, was away on a special event in their lives, she was having difficulty. Called Grandpa. Grandpa picked her up. Grandpa took her to my house, calmed her down, gave her a little ice cream, got her put down for bed at night, and then spent the entire day with her the next day. I learned all about one-word answers from 12-year-olds.
Yes.
And ultimately we actually wound up talking, sharing, what's going on in her life. Found out the things that she liked to do, things that she didn't like to do. Took a little walk on the beach, took her shopping downtown, took her out for lunch, and so we kind of bonded a little bit over so this huge delta between a 12-year-old and an 80-year-old.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from that, and felt pretty good about making her feel better.
Yeah.
Came to find out that she doesn't like to read.
Yeah.
And why is that? Well, because I just don't like what they asked me to read. So, of course, I told her that to be successful in her life, she's going to have to learn how to read.
Yeah.
And you can't short that. You need to do it. But maybe some of the things they're asking you to read you just don't care about. So I bought her some books.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I sent the books to her, and I said, here's some different little books that you should start reading, and let me know how that's working out. So that's kind of how I feel a grandparent can make a difference in a child's life. When it comes to the older kids, my kids now, my children range in age from their mid-50s to, right to almost 50. And my stepchildren are literally from the high 40s to 42. Yeah. So it's just like step down the line.
Exactly.
And so I make it a point to talk with them about issues that they're dealing with, whether it's investments, or whether it's parenting, or whether it's growing a business, or whether it's getting along with somebody somewhere outside their normal life, or neighbors. So I just think if I can share my learnings and help them think about things maybe a little differently than they otherwise would have, I've added some value.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to try something a little different next year. I'm going to take each one of the 10 kids on a 4-day, 3-night trip someplace. I put together and assembled 25 short trips.
Yeah.
By definition, some are outdoor nature destinations. Some are cities, communities, parts of history. I'm going to give them the opportunity to pick. I'm guessing probably from the oldest to the youngest, which pretty much means that Susan's going to start.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to take just one family at a time, someplace special.
That's cool.
That I've never been.
Yeah.
And or if I have been, it was always strictly business related, never had a chance to smell the roses or find out really what the location was all about.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do it with one family at a time. And I'm going to spread it through a year. And I'm going to start next year. So Christmas, they're going to get a gift. That gift is going to be this list of trips to pick. And they're going to get it in rotation. And they can pick the date, they can pick the time, they can pick the place. But I'm taking all the reservations, all the planning, all the guides, all the restaurants, all the hotels, all the information I have to do to make the trip memorable.
Yeah.
Because at some point in time, I'm going to hope that they will tell their children, and their children will tell their children, and they'll show them some pictures of, here's a trip I took with my grandpa.
Yeah.
And how special it was. I remembered it so well. I still have all the pictures. I still have all the memories. And so, what else do you leave behind? I guess you concentrate on community. You concentrate on your business, your employee base. You concentrate on your family. And if you do well by all of those different people, I think you're probably doing as much as anybody could ever do for anybody. So that's who I am.
That's I think that's a great way to end it. And if you don't mind, I might have to steal that idea as I get older and hopefully have grandkids. I like that the trip idea.
Good.
I want to thank you for sitting down with me.
Oh, you're welcome.
And do you have any questions for me before we just wrap this up?
No, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate, obviously, the impact that you had personally on my daughter and my son-in-law. They have tremendous respect and care for you. I guess, as you say, they've been putting these training sessions first and foremost with you for when they're here for upwards of 15 years.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of confidence and trust in you, and that's really important. And you help keep them healthy and feeling well, for themselves. So I think that's really good. And one of those situations where it's win-win. Good for you, good for them.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
right. So good for all.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for all, and it's always cool to meet cool people and who are educated and smart and are interested in entrepreneurship like I am. And so this has been a great conversation. Thank you again, and I know I look forward to seeing you in the morning.
Good. You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you so much, Donahue.
Thank you.
Okay.